Iran has released what it says are the first visuals of its missile strikes on US military bases, offering a dramatic look at its claimed retaliation. Calling it a response to US aggression, Iran has unveiled footage showing a barrage of missiles launched toward American military targets. Iran has published dramatic new footage that it says captures its attack on American targets during the latest military confrontation. Iran is escalating its rhetoric by highlighting reported American casualties and injuries, using the conflict to amplify its message against Washington. One of the missile warheads carried a message directed at US President Trump, adding a symbolic dimension to the military exchange. In a sharp propaganda message, Iran claimed that Trump's only success was boosting the business of US coffin makers and wheelchair manufacturers. The latest footage comes after Iran's missile launches triggered widespread alarm across Kuwait and Bahrain, heightening fears of a broader regional escalation. Mujtaba wastes no time punishing Trump's forces after Tehran alleges the ceasefire was violated. Fresh panic after Iran fires missiles and drones at US-linked military targets across the Gulf region. Explosions rock Bahrain. Air defenses engage missiles and drones over neighboring Kuwait. US and Bahrain claim they shot down 9 Iranian attack drones during the latest regional escalation. Iran retaliates hours after US airstrikes targeted military facilities in southern Iran. Trump ordered the latest strikes on Iran, citing what Washington called repeated ceasefire violations. US forces hit Iranian missile, drone, and coastal radar positions in coordinated operations. Explosions shake Qeshm Island and southern Iran as US raids target strategic military sites. CENTCOM says strikes targeted air defenses, drones, and naval mine-laying infrastructure. US SEDOP followed Iranian drone attack on a commercial tanker near the Strait of Hormuz. Trump threatens Iran. Islamic Republic may no longer exist if attacks continue against US interests. Donald Trump said, and I quote, "United States aircraft just struck Iranian missile and drone storage locations and coastal radar sites for violating the ceasefire agreement again. It is very possible that they will never learn. There may come a point when we are no longer able to be reasonable and will be forced to militarily complete the job that we very successfully started. If that happens, the Islamic Republic of Iran will no longer exist." Unquote. Iran claims it hit US 5th Fleet Base in Bahrain and Ali Al Salem Air Base in Kuwait. IRGC says joint missile drone strikes targeted 8 key US military installations across the Gulf region. Iran strikes US-linked targets in Bahrain as fresh hostilities threaten to derail the fragile peace process. Bahrain accuses Iran of drone strike near the strategic US 5th Fleet headquarters. Manama condemns attack as a blatant breach of its sovereignty and regional security. Bahrain vows to defend its territory as fears of a wider Gulf escalation grow. Tehran defends defensive response, saying it acted after recent US military strikes on Iran. Iran says US airstrikes violated the war-ending agreement reached just last week. US struck Iranian missile, drone, and radar sites only hours before Tehran's response. Pentagon said strikes retaliated for the drone attack on a cargo ship near the Strait of Hormuz. New tit-for-tat strikes to push the fragile US-Iran ceasefire to the brink of collapse?
Mr. President, you said that Iran violated the ceasefire.
Yeah,
will they face any consequences?
Well, you'll find out.
Do you consider the ceasefire to still be in place?
I don't like the fact that they took a shot yesterday, actually 4, we knocked down 3, at a ship. Not an Allied ship, but a ship, a very expensive ship. And it was fine, but it took a little beating. They shouldn't be doing that, so you'll find out.
Will the U.S.
You'll find out.
Will the
exactly.
U.S. respond? What is your message to
Will
Iran?
I respond? You're going to find out.
The US-Iran ceasefire is now facing what could be its biggest test since the agreement was announced. Iran's IRGC claims it carried out retaliatory strikes against US military targets in the region. Tehran has accused Washington of violating the peace agreement, raising fresh concerns about the ceasefire's future. IRGC statement read, and I quote, "According to Article 5 of the Islamabad Memorandum of Understanding, arrangements for controlling transit and movement in the Strait of Hormuz are under the responsibility of the Islamic Republic of Iran. However, the United States, by inciting various parties, sought to violate this commitment, and an appropriate response was given, and it will be the same going forward. In the event of a repeated act of aggression, our response will be broader than this." Unquote. An Iranian official has condemned the US attack, calling it a reckless violation of the ceasefire agreement. Ibrahim Azizi said, and I quote, "The US attacked Iran in the middle of negotiations once again. The failed US president has shown he has no commitment to the principles of negotiation or a ceasefire. This reckless violation of the ceasefire will, as always, lead to retreat and regret on their part. The blame game does not work anymore." Unquote. The strikes came after the US accused Iran of being responsible for an attack on a commercial vessel in the Strait of Hormuz. The US military says it targeted Iranian missile, drone, and radar sites during the operation. CENTCOM's statement read, and I quote, "US Central Command, CENTCOM, forces conducted strikes against Iran, June 26, as a powerful response to yesterday's attack on a commercial ship that was transiting the Strait of Hormuz. US aircraft struck Iranian missile and drone storage locations and coastal radar sites after Iran hit MV Ever Lovely on June 25 with a one-way attack drone. The Singapore-flagged cargo ship was exiting the Strait of Hormuz along the Omani coast at the time of Iran's attack. The unwarranted aggression against commercial shipping by Iranian forces clearly violated the ceasefire. Furthermore, Iran's dangerous behavior undermined freedom of navigation as commerce increasingly flows through the vital international trade corridor. CENTCOM forces continue to provide safe passage coordination and support to commercial vessels transiting the strait. The US military remains present and vigilant to ensure all aspects of the agreement with Iran are adhered to, obeyed, and in full force and effect." Unquote. Iran has rejected allegations of attacking the commercial vessel, calling them false flag operations. Meanwhile, President Trump's vice president issued a fresh warning, urging Iran not to risk further escalation. J.D. Vance said, and I quote, "Iran signed a ceasefire agreement. We have honored it. If they have disagreements about how the Memorandum of Understanding is being applied, they can pick up the phone, but violence will be met with violence." Unquote. The United States has urged Iran to resolve tensions through diplomacy rather than military action. As both sides trade accusations, the fragile ceasefire is coming under growing pressure. The big question now is whether the US-Iran peace deal is already beginning to unravel.
Hello guys, hey everyone, welcome back to my channel for daily news roundup. It's Sunday, June 28, 2026, and the world is on the edge of major escalations in the Middle East, a devastating natural disaster in South America, and some US weather crisis. Let's dive into the top stories right now. So basically, breaking US Iran tension, it explode again, you know. So, the fragile ceasefire between the US and Iran appears to be collapsing overnight and into the today. The US conducted fresh airstrikes on Iranian targets, and Iran has reiterated with drone and missile attacks on US related sites in Bahrain and Kuwait. So, according to the reports, the US struck multiple Iranian sites, including missile, drone storage, coastal radar, and air defense position near the Strait of Hormuz. This follows Iran, Iran's strike on a cargo ship in the strait, which the US called a violation of the recent ceasefire agreement. Now, IRCG, which is Iran Revolutionary Guard Corps, claimed responsibility for strikes on US military facilities in neighboring Gulf countries, with sirens sounding in Kuwait and Bahrain also. As you are aware that these Kuwait and Bahrain, they have the setup for US air bases, for US military forces. So this is the reason both sides are accusing each other of breaking the peace deal, and President Trump has warned of further action if violations continue. Now, this is raising global concerns over oil prices, shipping disruption, and the risk of wider conflict. We all keep monitoring this developing story. Now, the second story here comes from Venezuela, which is devastation from earthquake. So, the death toll from last week powerful twin earthquakes in Venezuela continues to climb, now exceeding 1400, with thousands still missing and rescue efforts ongoing amid aftershocks. So the 7.2 and 7.5 magnitude quakes struck on June 24, causing widespread building collapses. US and international search and rescue teams are on the ground helping, including dramatic saves like an infant pulled from the rubble. Hospitals are overwhelmed, and the situation remains dire days later. So almost 1,000 families have suffered from this incidents, have been killed. These are, the people, they have suffered a lot. Our thoughts are with the people of Venezuela during this incredibly difficult time. Aid organizations are mobilizing. So this is the news from Venezuela. Now back we are back in the US. So the extreme weather is dominating headlines. Destructive wildfires are raging in Utah and parts of the West, forcing evacuations and testing firefighters. So, meanwhile, flooding in Kentucky has a prompt state of emergency. Also, as we approach America's 250th anniversary on July 4th, preparations are underway in Washington, D.C., with the special fireworks and events planned. So, let me give you a quick glimpse. So, quick glimpse about World Cup 2026, England topping their group. Now, what is to be seen? The Middle East situation is fluid and serious. So we have to be updated about all the proceedings that happen there, because it will affect global oil prices. Ultimately the everything till our food, groceries, elements, everything is becoming more pricier. You can say increase in price, so we have to be cautious. Thanks a lot.